Hello, everybody. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We are live on the Hangout, and we're also on Maestro. If you can hear me on Maestro, can you please press 1, just so that we know that you can hear us? Great. Okay. If you are watching us on the Google Hangout, can you please type in the group chat so that we know you can watch us on the group chat? Right now it says 0 viewers, so I just want to make sure we're all looking at the same places. Okay, hold on. Let me see. Oh, you can't see us yet. I think there's a lag on the video. Okay, so if you're on the phone and you can't see us in the video, just make sure you exit out of it and then replay it again, and then you'll see us again. So if you can see us on the Google Hangout, can you please press 2? Press 2 if you can see us on the Google Hangout. And if you can't, then we'll... Okay, perfect. John Young can see us in the Google Hangout. Juan Nidro can see us in the Google Hangout. Good. Okay, so if you can't see it, just restart it again and it'll work.
And if you're on the phone, you should make sure to click the Google Hangout link that Danny sent around earlier.
Yeah, I resent the Google Hangout link. So make sure you go to that link to watch us. Cool. Okay, so everybody, so we're gonna get started. This is Grant Fuller, our digital director. He's gonna be training us on how to write blogs. So we're really excited to have you. Thank you, Grant.
Thank you.
Okay, so you can take it away.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. Thank you guys so much for spending part of your Thursday evening with us here at Battleground, Texas. We're very excited to do these digital webinars. And webinars of all kinds. This is the second or third one that I've done. And I love having you guys on the phone and here on the Hangout to talk more about how we can improve our digital content through amazing volunteers like you guys in the field. So today, what we're going to talk about is the blog, the basics of the Battleground blog. So you might know that on battlegroundtexas.com we have a blog. It used to be called the news section. We recently changed that to call it the blog because it's a little more accurate. It's not really a collection of news articles. It's more of a log or a chronicle of Battleground Texas and the work that you guys are doing in the field. So basically, this training is to get you guys comfortable with the idea of producing blogs yourself and submitting them to us for us to publish and to post under your name. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how to do that. But first, I want to do a little bit of an introduction of myself and with everyone. So I'm going to ask a couple of people to introduce themselves and talk about one thing they have considered blogging about, or one thing they might be interested in blogging about. I'll start. My name is Grant Fuller. As Priscilla said, I'm digital director here at Battleground, Texas. And one thing that I like to do on the blog is to tell stories in sound. I have a background in radio reporting, and so I like to record audio and sort of embed that on the blog and let people tell their own stories in their own voices. So that's my blog preference. So let's go to people on the phone and see who wants to introduce themselves and say something that they're interested in blogging about. So it's
like way laggy. So if you want to do it on the phone.
Oh, okay.
Okay. If anyone's listening to us on the phone, I know you might be watching and it's lagging, but if you can press 1 if you'd like to share with us your introduction and something that you like to blog about on the phone. You can press 1 if you'd like to share with us on the phone.
Don't be shy. Somebody introduce yourself.
They're still like watching us. Okay, maybe they just write it on the group chat. So we're gonna have you guys write it on the group chat. So if you're on watching us on the webinar, just introduce yourself, say your name, the city where you live, and one thing that you'd like to blog about, so that we can use that information as we're thinking about writing stories. So go ahead. Yeah. I think you're gonna have to wait a little bit.
Okay.
It's gonna come back, but you can keep going.
Let's see if anybody jumps at the chance.
Oh, okay.
Should we just keep going?
Yeah, I think you should just keep going.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We will come back to that at the end if we get the chance. But let's move on, and I'll just get through the training, and then we'll see if people have questions at the end. So the basics of the Battleground blog. Why does Battleground Texas have a blog? Why does Battleground Texas blog? There are several reasons. One of them is that it drives traffic to our website. Having a blog gives us the opportunity to keep our content fresh and updated on the website at all times. So we can post a blog a day, a blog a week at the minimum, and make sure that we have new and fresh information there for people to consume and to take action and to get involved with Battleground Texas through the blog. Two, it's a home. It serves as a home for longer content. On social media, a lot of times you're very limited. Obviously, on Twitter, you're limited to 140 characters. On Facebook, you're limited to a little more than that. But you don't really have the ability to tell really long or slightly longer and drawn out stories. On the blog, you have basically unlimited space where you can tell longer stories and sort of delve a little deeper into different topics and things that have happened to you guys in the field. So it's convenient for that. We can break out of the confines of the social media landscape and have this great blank space. That's another great thing about the blog. It's kind of a blank canvas for creativity, because you can sort of do whatever you want with it. The possibilities are kind of limitless on what you can post on the blog. And it's also a great way. The blog is basically the place where we tell the story of Battleground Texas. So it's a storytelling avenue or vehicle. So we rely on volunteers like you to submit to us the content and the stories that you're experiencing every day in the field. And we relate those to our wider audience through the blog. And that constitutes the story of Battleground Texas, which is a story of volunteers and awesome grassroots activism in the field, and growing the electorate and registering voters and doing all those things that add up to making Texas a battleground state in the long run. The last thing is that the blog ultimately helps get new people involved in Battleground Texas. Every post that we do on the blog needs to have an ask at the end of it, like volunteer or donate or take some kind of action, sign on to support marriage equality or something like that. Thankfully, we don't have to do that anymore. But it's a great place to get people to take an action that can then lead to them eventually taking an offline action in the field with you guys as volunteers. So that's the ultimate goal, is to share great content, share great stories from what's happening with you guys in the field, and get more people involved through that. So you might be saying to yourself, well, that's great for you guys, but what's in it for me? I'm the volunteer here. I'm doing all the work. It's my story. So what's in it for me? Well, first of all, I totally understand that concern, but it's also, we're all on the same team here. There is no Battleground Texas and the volunteers separately. The volunteers, we've always said, are Battleground Texas. You guys are this organization, and you are growing it from the ground up and it belongs to you. So, but that said, the blog does have mutual benefits for the organization as a whole and for you individually as a volunteer. Because first thing is that it's fun. It's fun to blog, to write a blog, and to see your name up there on the website, on the blog. We'll give you a byline that if you wrote most of the story yourself, you submitted to us a few bullet points or whatever about something that happened in the field. We'll say, by Susan from Longview, who's a volunteer leader, or whatever, and you'll get that credit, and you'll be able to see that. If you've never been published on the internet before, it's a pretty cool feeling, and you can share that with your friends, share it with your family, show off a little bit and brag, and it also serves to promote your team, your neighborhood team, and to recruit new volunteers and new people for your neighborhood team. So once we share it on the blog, you can then share it with your personal networks, and that expands the reach of that blog post, and gets at people who might be interested in joining you guys in the field. Also, support for Battleground Texas as an organization, like I said before, equals support for yourselves. So when you do something like write a blog post that supports the organization Battleground Texas, you're actually doing that for yourselves, because you are Battleground Texas, and you're doing something that is mutually beneficial and will come back, will pay off in the long run, because you will eventually get more interest out of it, and possibly get more supporters and more volunteers out of it. So there are good reasons to write blogs on the Battleground Texas website. Let's go to some examples now, so you can stop looking at my face and start looking at some great blogs. I'm just going to share my screen here, and you should be seeing shortly the Battleground Texas blog. So this is a blog post that we did last year during the election, or pretty close to election day, by our esteemed former GOTV coordinator, Achilles. Hello, Achilles, if you're out there. He wrote this great blog post called "Sign Me Up for the 20th, Mijo." It's about this conversation that he had with a voter in McAllen in the Valley, named Don Amato, and so this is basically the blog. Starts with a photo. I would love to have had a photo of Don Amato himself, but I don't think he was willing to be photographed, if I remember correctly. So we had to improvise, and we went with a photo of the Count Me In card, because you will see, or the Commit to Vote card, as you'll see in a second. Basically, I won't read the whole thing, but he says that he met Don Amato on his doorstep in McAllen, and they had a conversation. He said he's a Democrat, he's a supporter, and he walked him through their early vote calendar and showed him the Commit to Vote card. And Don Amato said, "Apúntame para el 20, mijo." Sign me up for the 20th, my friend. So he only spoke Spanish. Achilles spoke Spanish to him and got him to commit to voting, which is awesome, and obviously very important to the cause. He says, and Don Amato said "Apúntame" as if I was signing him up for a party. So a nice little anecdote there. That's how I think about early vote. It's a big party, and we're all invited. A party to celebrate democracy. When we make people like Don Amato feel included in the process and invite them in, they will jump at the chance to be heard. And then at the end, he ends with, "Will you join Don Amato and commit to vote on Monday?" With a link to the Commit to Vote page, followed by a button that says "I'm voting Monday." So it gives people a concrete action to take at the end of the blog, so that you always want to give people a place to go Once they get through reading the blog, you don't want to just leave them hanging. You want to give them somewhere to go and some action to take to continue to be engaged and to be involved. Um, so there's an example of what our blog looks like. I'll show you some examples. I'll show you some examples from other organizations in a second. This image is very important. It should always be hyperlinked, so that people have something extra to click, so that they can go, and it makes it easy for them to go and take an action. Don't worry too much about all this layout. You're never going to have to set up an entire Battleground Texas blog yourself. That's our job in the digital department. I'll tell you in a second the exact things that we need from you to submit a blog, but you're never going to have to do the HTML code and all the stuff that gets it up on our website. So don't stress out about that. We want to make this as easy for you guys as possible, and obviously this more advanced, complicated stuff will be left to us, and you guys can focus on your volunteer work. So let's go to another example. This one is from OFA, Organizing for Action, which I know you guys are probably familiar with. This one was titled, "It was the honor of a lifetime." Often a quote from someone in the blog is a good way to title the article. It's kind of a good hook to get people interested and feel like, wondering what was the honor of her lifetime, and wanting to read a little more. So this is by Jennifer Contreras, a senior fellow at OFA, and she's talking about the biggest honor of her life, introducing the President of the United States. There's a big picture of her introducing the president. Pictures are vital, absolutely vital on the blog. Blog posts without pictures are kind of rudderless, like they kind of really don't, they're not interesting to look at all, and people will just kind of skim over them. So she shows a picture of introducing the president, and then she basically tells her personal story. She's a fellow from Arizona. I've seen a lot of dreams made real since I started organizing. As the daughter of two immigrants, nothing compares to how I felt watching my father pass his citizenship exam. She goes on, tells the rest of her story. I'm dedicated to the fight for immigration reform. And then she ends with an ask again. Everyone has a story that drives them to be part of this movement. It's time to write yours. Apply for the OFA Summer Fellowship today. And then a button that says, makes it easy for everyone, and says, apply now. So it's another good example of telling your personal story on the blog. It's a great place for that. And then finding a way to transition from that into an ask that gets people involved and gets them to take an action that benefits the organization as a whole. So in this case, it's applying for the summer fellowship. So there's what the OFA blog looks like. They actually call it news. We call it the blog, but it's basically the same thing. This one is a little different outside of the realm of politics. It's from the NGO World Vision. They do call it their blog, our blog. And this one is titled "When Life Hands You Lemons," and it's about, guess what, lemonade stands. And of course, the first thing to start with is a huge picture of these cute little kids running a lemonade stand. Always very important to have a good image right up top. The heat of summer is the perfect time for lemonade stands. So a nice little caption on the photo. And then it gets into this guy telling his story about when he was 9 years old, and his sister and him set up a lemonade stand at the end of their driveway. And then it goes on to talk about his kids, who are 7 and 4, and they set up a lemonade stand of their own, selling lemonade to benefit kids who are associated with the NGO World Vision in developing countries around the world. So there's another cute picture of the kids with their lemonade stand signed. Oh, super cute. And then it goes on, and at the end, there's a little break, and then there's an ask. Through World Vision's social fundraising platform, we provide you with all the tools you need to start a lemonade stand or other project to raise money for clean water. Do something small and make a big difference this summer. Get started right now. So it gives you the tools, the links right here to do the same thing that he did. So he talks about something that he did and then gives you the opportunity to do it yourself through their fundraising platform. So in our case, in a Battleground Texas version of this scenario, um, basically you would write a blog about an experience you had registering voters, and then at the end you would ask people to pledge to register voters with you, or something along those lines. So the same kind of thing. Just this is just to show you some examples of different blogs, and how it doesn't have to be rocket science. It's just a few paragraphs and a nice little story, just like you're sitting on the couch talking to your friend or talking to your aunt, um, telling them a story. It's the same kind of thing. And then you just want to end with an ask and a link. And then one more, just for good measure, from the Hillary campaign, building a grassroots campaign by the numbers. So this is a blog. It's kind of a different one. It's not really telling a personal story or a story from the field. It's more of a general blog that gives some details about the Hillary campaign and the field and how they are spread out throughout the entire country and have field offices all over the place. It gives a lot of stats up here about all their different offices and volunteers and meetings that they've had. Has some postcards here from different states, including, hey, Texas. And then down here, there's a quote, which is a pullout. We call this a pullout quote, which is always a great thing to use if someone says something to you at an event, or has some kind of great quote at any time in your volunteering. You should definitely flag that in your blog. Tell us about it, if it really impacted you, and we can do a pull out kind of like this, or use it as the title, or sort of call it out or feature it in some way or another. Cool. I'm going to move on because we're running short on time, but this is the next thing I want to show you. What we need. So you should have received this already, I believe. We sent you this in the email, this PDF document called the blog, What We Need. So this is basically just a scenario and then a short list of things that we would need for you to submit a blog for the battlegroundtexas.com website. So I'll just read through this a little bit. So let's say you're at a 4th of July voter registration drive, which just passed. And there you met and spoke with an 87-year-old Latina grandmother, and you got her registered to vote for the first time ever. Awesome. So this awesome thing happened to you and you want to write a blog about it. Here's what we need from you. Basically, we just need the author's name, which that's easy. It's just going to be you most of the time, unless you're doing it on behalf of a fellow or an intern or another volunteer. And just tell us who should be credited as the author. And what their title is, if they're a digital lead or a data captain or whatever it may be, neighborhood team leader. A title is always great if you want to suggest one. If you don't have the time to do that or don't feel like messing with it, don't worry about it. We can figure out a title. But if you want to suggest a title, go for it. Like I said, quotes are often good options for that. Photos are always the best. Always essential for blog posts. We need a photo of the thing that you're talking about, the person that you're talking about, or the experience you're talking about, or you registering voters, or you doing some kind of organizing of some kind or another. Definitely need some kind of photo there, because the photo will be the focal point of the blog. It'll catch people's eye, and it'll also serve as the preview on our homepage on battlegroundtexas.com. There's a preview of the blog there, and it'll show up. The photo will show up first thing that people see, the photo and the title. So the photo and the blog title are probably the most important pieces. And then we need the meat of the story, the bullet points, relating a condensed version of your story. So we don't need the entire thing. We don't need you to tell us every single little detail. We don't need you to write the whole blog. If you want to write the whole blog, if you're a writer, that's great. If you're not a writer, if you can't stand the thought of writing, or you're a numbers person, something like that, don't worry about it. You can send us the basic bare bones version of what happened, and then we can turn that into a blog. And then we'll run it by you before we post it, and we'll always make sure that you're good with it before we publish it on the internet. So here I just gave you a couple little pro tips for writing these blogs. KISS, keep it short and sweet. It doesn't need to be a novel. We don't have a limit on the blog, but we shouldn't be posting novels. People's attention span is pretty short these days, so we gotta get in and get out. No need to be perfect. Like I said, we'll edit and tweak it on our end and write it for you if we need to. That's totally fine. That's our job. That's what we're here for. And then write a compelling title that grabs attention. People won't read your blog if you have a boring title, and it needs to grab people's attention. So just a little example of some of the blog. If you were going to write a blog about this lady who you met and registered, you might title it Gabriela is a voter, or something like that. That's not a great title, but you could probably come up with something better. And then the author by John Jones, San Antonio volunteer leader. Put the photo right there, or attach it to your email to us. And then just 3 quick bullet points on what happened. So just as you're sitting on the couch talking to a friend, I met Gabriela. She was sitting by the pool watching her grandkids play at the 4th of July celebration on San Antonio's west side. We started chatting in Spanish, and I explained what I was doing. She said she was 87 and she had never voted before because she didn't know how. So then I told her that getting registered is the next step and walked her through the process of filling out the form with her daughter's help. And when I was finished, she had a tear in her eye and said, "Thank you so much. Nobody has ever asked me to register to vote before." And then she promised to get the rest of her family registered if they weren't already. So that's it. That's the whole story. It's obviously this is a made up story, but it's a common one, and something that could happen to you guys out in the field. And if it does, we want to hear about it. We can't, we can't know what's happening in the field, what kind of people you run across or conversations you have, unless you tell us about them. So we would love for you guys to tell us about them and let us tell your stories on the blog and feature the amazing work you're doing, highlight you a little bit, let you brag to your friends and your fellow volunteers. So please send us your stories. And the last part of this is the link. If you want to suggest a link, that would be great. Like in this case, I suggested the Ask Your Voting Questions page that we have linked to on our website, so that we can say, Gabriela registered to vote. Do you have questions about voting yourself? Click here, something like that. So if you want to suggest a place that we link to from your blog, go for it. We'd love to hear it. If not, don't worry about it. Again, we will take care of it on our end. Let's get off the screen share. Oh, yeah, there we go. Hi. So I think that is pretty much it. Like I said before, don't worry too much about perfection. The title and the photo is most important. Just be a natural storyteller as if you're sitting on the couch by the fire talking to a friend, and don't overthink it. It's not rocket science here. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're just trying to get a simple story across that will help us recruit new volunteers and get people involved in the long run. So I think that's it. Do you guys have any? Should we take questions?
Yeah, if you're on the phone and you can hear us and you're not watching us on the Google Hangout, feel free to press 1 if you have a question, and I'll call on you. And there's several people who are on the phone, but they're not on the Google Hangout. So Sandra, I'm going to muting you now. Hi, Sandra.
Hi. Unfortunately, can you hear me?
Yes,
okay?
we can hear you.
Okay. Unfortunately, I tried to watch the webinar and the phone at the same time, which is impossible.
Yeah.
It's like a 2-minute delay.
Yeah.
And, so I was going crazy. Finally shut off the web thing so I could listen to the phone. But one of the questions I wanted to ask was I sent a picture of me and some convicts that I had, former convicts, that I had registered. I was wondering if you had used that.
Yeah, we did. Thank you so much for that, Sandra. We definitely used that on Facebook, and we included it in a sort of a slideshow of all of our Juneteenth voter registration activity.
Okay, because I haven't had a chance to look at anything, and myself, and I was just wondering if that's the kind of thing that you're looking for.
Yes, Yes, absolutely. That's totally the kind of thing we're looking for. That's a great example for you, for those of you that are listening and are not named Sandra. Um, uh, just to explain, she sent a great photo of herself with these three guys who were working at the they were working like at the barriers for the Juneteenth parade in Austin, and they were uh, former felons who are now off papers and are now allowed to vote, eligible to vote, and so she registered them to vote, which is awesome. Way to go, Sandra! And so we told that story on Facebook and in an email, I believe, on our Battleground bulletin, and we included that in a slideshow GIF of photos from recapping that weekend. So thank you so much for that, Sandra. It was awesome. We weren't able to tell go into as much detail on that story as we would have liked. That's why you didn't get a full blog from us, because we weren't able to.
Well, the only thing I did learn that 99% of the people in this country do not realize that people get their voting rights back.
Yeah.
And so that was not only, a revelation for me as well as the people I registered, but it seems to me that's a message we need to be sending out everywhere.
Yeah.
But anyway, I got to do some follow up with your, your webinar. I want to watch it again so we don't have conflict.
Yeah, please, please do.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you for being on. We appreciate everything you do.
Yes. Great. Thank you, Sandra, for that. If there are no more questions, I think make sure to email me, P. Martinez at battlegroundtexas.com. And if not, then you can also feel free to email Grant, gfuller at battlegroundtexas.com. If you do have your ideas for your blog, feel free to send it over to his way. He knows how to make them a lot better. So make sure to do that. And thank you guys for joining us. Next week, we're going to have a data webinar on just some volunteer My Campaign side of things. So basically how to use survey questions to know what kind of volunteers have been involved, what type of volunteer we've had in the past. Also a little bit more on the scheduling side of things. So it's going to be a really great webinar. So I hope you join us next Thursday at 7. Thank you guys so much. And do you have something else to say?
I just wanted to say again, I meant to say this like Priscilla did, that you guys, I'm happy to answer questions at any time. You guys are free to contact me. I love hearing from our volunteers. So my email is gfuller at battlegroundtexas.com, GFULLER, battlegroundtexas.com. Feel free to email me and ask questions if you didn't get, if you were trying to listen on Maestro and on the Google Hangout and you didn't quite get everything. I'm happy to follow up with you and send you any of the docs that you didn't get or answer any follow-up questions that you might have. And we would love to hear your stories from the field and put them on the blog and make you Battleground famous.
So make sure you write your stories.
Yeah.
And everything. Yeah. We're looking forward to reading those.
Yeah,
so.
definitely.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, guys.
Bye.
Take care.